Hello, hello. Let's turn this down. All right. Welcome to the Profit Lab show and podcast. I'm your host, Marie Torossian, CPA and a certified 10X business coach. And I'm so glad you are here. If you're new to the show, go ahead and subscribe or follow the channel or the area where you're listening or watching us from. So you get the alerts every time that we go live, which is going to be every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. And we go live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and more. All right. So today we are stepping into pillar number 11, which is time mastery and CEO discipline. We've kind of covered a little bit of time. We've touched on that in prior episodes, but today we're going to go a little bit more deep dive. If you've ever said to yourself, I know what to do, I just don't do it consistently, this episode is for you. That's exactly why I made that. So most owners think time is just a productivity problem. And yes, there is a portion of that, but it really is a profit problem. And let me explain. When you spend hours in emails instead of doing sales, when you live in reaction mode instead of leading, when your calendar is controlled by other people's priorities, you're not just losing time, you're losing money. And that's why I say it's a profit problem. I'm going to give you an example here because, I always promise you guys to give you real world examples. This is not just theory or philosophy. This is real life, examples. So let's assume there's, a CPA firm, and the owner or the partner, keeps getting interrupted with, hey, I have a question for this, the quick questions. Everybody has a question. It's a continuous interruption. What happens is that your day gets chopped up and then your team is waiting on every word from you to make a decision or move forward with anything. And your clients learn that you're always available. So there's really no guardrails for you to be able to protect your time. In an agency, let's say it's a marketing agency and you're the owner, you get pulled into every client message and every internal Slack thread. You become the bottleneck and quality starts slipping away. Let's also assume another example. Say it's an IT, and I give you these examples because these are the areas of where I work with most with business owners in professional services. Say you're in IT and you're constantly stuck at the break fix mode. Your calendar gets filled up with these urgent tickets. Everything is urgent, but may not really be. So you're constantly having to carve up time to turn off these fires. So instead of managing and being productive with your time, creating profits, you're always stuck in just, turning off fires, just catching up, just like running after things. So you're always reactive. So time mastery is what creates the space for the work that actually grows the business, which we'll focus on sales, pricing, hiring, training, systems implementation, and your leadership. So I want to go a little, like I said, I'm going to go a little bit more deep dive today. What does CEO time look like? And I want to identify certain identities that we kind of, let's say hats we wear as business owners. So there are like 3 different identities, I would say, or the hats. First one is the technician hat. The technician is the person that does the work. So let's say when you first started your business, you're the person that knows what to do. So you're the technician at the beginning. Then there's the manager, the person that's coordinating work. So you kind of wear that hat for a while, and then maybe both. Then as your business gets bigger, now you have to get to a portion where you're like more of the CEO. And that's where you're designing and directing the business. You're planning the future of the business. So you got to move past the technician and the manager. So ask yourself, here's a question. Ask yourself, which identity owns your calendar right now? Is it the technician? Is it the manager? Is it the CEO? Which one is actually taking over your calendar? Again, I'm going to go into a little bit of examples. So I don't want to say these these things as a philosophy, but really want to help you understand where you're at. So if you're a CPA firm owner or a partner, you as a technician may be that you are actually preparing the tax returns, you are doing reconciliations, and maybe some other things that could be totally delegated to somebody else, like a staff member. As a manager, you might be reviewing staff work. You're maybe answering client questions. You're getting on calls with the clients to answer any issues, that things that come up. You're really in charge of that. But as a CEO of your business, you are thinking more expansion. You're thinking, how do I package advisory services? How do I build out tax strategy practice? What prices should I put in? What are some new policies and procedures? How am I going to incorporate AI, for example? You're figuring out what's my capacity is going to look like by the next expansion or next busy season. So those are the bigger level questions you would ask yourself as a CPA firm owner, as a CEO versus a technician or a manager. Make sense? So if we were to take, let's say, marketing agency now, same thing. We're going to fill in these 3 identities, okay? So as a technician, you might be writing copies, you're designing posts, building different campaigns. As a manager, you're managing the different client projects and you're making the client updates. You're making sure the team is actually doing the technical work. But as a CEO, you're refining your positioning as a marketing agency. You are building a referral engine. You're hiring people, the right people to deliver, to be the technicians. So it's much higher level work. So coming back to my initial question, when you look at your calendar, which portion of these 3 is basically dominating your calendar? So the goal is not to never do technical work, right? As a coach, I am a technician, right? But I also, as a CEO of my business, I have to make sure my technical delivery time is a specific number of hours. But then as everything else that I don't need to be into the details, I let it go. So I do less of the management, more of the CEO or the technician. So look at your time in your calendar and which one is dominating. So the goal here is to shift so that at least 50 to 60% of your week is becoming more of a CEO level work. And of course, this doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to build that out. I wasn't like that before either. When I first started, I was basically wearing every hat. And until I was able to build my team and be able to delegate and let them handle a lot of things, even client communication to a certain point. And I focus very much on either CEO level work or coaching delivery, which is my technical part of what I do. So let's go through how do you implement this in your business, right? How do you go from being the technician to a CEO, and how your calendar can shift to go there? So first thing I would like you to think of is like auditing your calendar. You have no idea how many times I've actually had to force people to put things in their calendar. So I've had some clients and I would ask them like, so when will you make these calls, for example? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, okay, open up your calendar. And I see like there's nothing there. So they have everything in their mind that they're going to do, but it's not on the calendar. So they can't even audit their calendar because there's nothing there. Come on. So first thing is, let's make sure that you actually are logging the things you are doing. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's your technician work, whether it's your CEO level work or manager work, doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, the first point is to be able to log it. If you're not logging it, you can't even audit it. So going back, if you haven't logged it at all, please, the first thing for you to do is to go ahead, log for the upcoming week. Let's put it that way. Simple, 7 days. Just log in what you're doing for 7 days. So then you can go back and audit, right? So I had to do like the step 1 was supposed to be audit, but I'm thinking if you're not logging anything, there's nothing to audit. So So prior to step one, that's the initial, is to make sure you're logging everything. So step one will be auditing. So go back to your 5 to 7 days of you've logged in everything that you do. So what are they? What have you been spending time on? How long did it take? And then what category does it fall in? Is it a $10 work? Is it $100 work? Or is it $1,000 an hour work? Right? So you want to be able to establish the level of work, because again, in the past, I've mentioned this as an example where you want to focus on things that are high value for your time. And again, I'm going to give examples. $10 an hour work is like scheduling, you're chasing documents, following up with clients to give you this or that. Basic admin, data entry, those are like simple things that you can just totally delegate. Because when you open up 5 to 6 hours of like higher level work time, it's going to build more profits into your business. Another example is like $100 an hour work. So think project management, doing client updates, you're sending, these emails, anything else. You're doing content posting or internal coordination of different work. For example, when I'm having team meetings, right, to see, what's the update on different clients. And this is, when I give this example, is relating to my accounting business. I consider that like $100 an hour work. It's like a manager, right? And I do that only once a week. So I want to make sure that my time is going where it's building most value. So now let's think about $1,000 an hour work. That could be sales conversations. So think of it this way. If say your service, you have a service that's worth $30,000 a year, okay? When you're spending an hour to 2 hours to close that deal, what's your hourly rate? So start thinking from the area of what's my time worth. I want to give another example. I many years ago, when I first started my CPA accounting firm, and I was working on a project with a client. They needed a lot of help in accounting and corrections there. However, the CEO told me something, and at the time I was so wowed, and now I see more of what he meant. And this client used to work with really, really big companies, and they would close multi-year contracts. So the contract value could have been anywhere from 100K to 500K, right, over multiple years. So one day he told me, my hourly rate is about $250,000. I said, what? I don't understand. What do you mean? And he explained to me, he said, when I'm spending an hour or two with a client and we're closing a contract that's worth $500,000, that's, divide by 2. That's $250,000 an hour. So when you think of your business that way, with your time that way, what are the things you're willing to shift and not do or do to be able to get to that point where you are profitable and you're focusing on the CEO level work? Other things for that level, let's say, could be pricing decisions, hiring, training, building systems, partnerships, strategic partnerships. These are very high level, big vision, big goal type of work and tasks. So I'm going to give you a moment here to kind of think through some of the examples and think back on, what would that look like to audit your calendar. So now what we want to shift to is how to align your calendar, right? So look at the goals for the next 90 days. What are your goals? Does your calendar reflect those goals, right? Ask yourself, where am I over investing time? Where am I under investing time that takes me to that goal? So say your example is to increase profit by, 10, 20%, but you have zero time block for, let's say, reviewing your pricing, scope control, any cost review, or, anything else, right? That's in the calendar, or maybe some strategic plan, or actually you have some prospects you haven't closed yet, right? So where should your time go? You want to really think through that. Now, step number 3 is to design, architect, right? Architect, design your ideal CEO week. What would that look like? So you can think of, let's say, blocking 2 to 3 hours a week, which would be CEO block. That's where you do strategy, you do sales, you're doing the type of things that will move the needle. It's going to help you get to that goal. The other one could be, let's say, 2 to 3 afternoons per week where you're just doing delivery work. So for example, in my case, I only coach Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, because those are the days where I just deliver. It's very easy. Like if I were to jump from one thing to the other, one moment I'm the technician, then I'm the CEO. It gets very, actually, it's a energy drain. It's a mental drain. So I've blocked it down to like 3 days I coach, and that's all I do all day. I'm on back-to-back calls from like 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock nonstop. So that's what I want you to think about. It's like, when are the days that you're going to just do delivery, or the time blocks, right? And the next thing is team or operations block. So that could be 1 to 2 blocks per week where you're connecting with the team, looking at where things are. They're giving you feedbacks of where they're at. They're seeing situations that need to be reported. That's where you're there. Instead of constantly getting an email, oh, this happened, and that happened. You're like, So we don't want that. We want it to be controlled into a 1 time frame or 2 time frames where you just connect on those things and then solve any issues, empower the team to take charge afterwards. And then another one would be a focus block. Some people call it like a white space, but I don't like white space on the calendar, because when I see white space, I feel like I didn't do anything. So I'm calling it the focus space. So that could be, time blocks where you're just focusing on thinking, planning, strategizing further, or just catching up. For example, for me, I like catching up Saturday and Sunday mornings because I have no calls to do. I don't have to work with any team members. It's just me, just catching up and just making sure we're still staying on track with what we say we're going to do. So that gives me the time in the morning all to myself, focused work, and then the rest of the days, family. So again, I'm just going to go over it, repeat. 2 to 3 mornings where you are blocking for CEO time, strategy, or sales, delivery block, operations or team block, and then focus block. Okay. So the point here is not that, it's not perfection. The point is that you start moving and you restructure your calendar to become more like CEO focused work. Okay. And the last one I want you to think of are the non-negotiables, right? That's anchoring your calendar. These are the routines that keep you consistent even when life gets messy. And you know what? Life does get messy. And I find it interesting when some clients, when they, jump into a call and they're like, they haven't really worked on anything, or they've done half the work. And there's all these different things about this happened and that happened and that happened. You know what? A lot of things happened to my life too. Things happen to everybody's life. So we have to expect that things are going to get messy. Something's going to break. Something's going to need extra attention. But consistency and discipline will always prevail. So, think of things that you are not going to negotiate or drop it. Think things like looking at your pipelines, your offers, your decisions that you need to make, that it really requires you. Like weekly reviews and planning, planning about money, the metrics, priorities, things that it has to do with you. You have to oversee it. And then maybe a weekly looking at your numbers, connecting the dots where something is falling. I always recommend like looking at your books like once a week, once a month. Sometimes is too late with the way things are going in this time frame, in this lifetime. Everything is fast, and you can get information fast if it's the work is done. So look at your numbers. How are you performing? Don't wait for another month to finish so you can get the reports and make some decisions. So check it every week. Check your numbers. Check your cash balances. Look at your profit and loss statement. Look at your KPIs. So that's a non-negotiable. It has to be on the calendar. There's no way that's going to be replaced. So again, going back to the beginning, we had audit. Step 1, audit your time. Step 2, align your time to your goals. Step 3, design it in a way that it's functional for a CEO type work. And then anchor it with non-negotiables, things that will not be replaced. We're not going to drop it. I mentioned earlier about consistency and discipline. And I have to say, until you build a discipline, it's like you're running around with a chicken with no head. Okay. So the more discipline that you can almost force yourself to do. And I know the word force doesn't feel right, but I find it it's easy enough for me to force myself to do something, because if the end goal is going to be a great benefit, then it's going to feel less like it's forced. But sometimes you have to do it. For example, you want to lose, 20 pounds, 40 pounds, right? But you have to work out. You have to eat better. So you have to force yourself sometimes. You don't feel like it, but you have to do it. I have to show up for these, going live every Wednesday. I don't always feel like it. I don't always want to put on makeup and show up here. However, I do it because it's part of my goals. I have to show up. So when you're not feeling like doing it, it's probably the right time to actually do it. And that's why I use the word force yourself. So if you're having these types of inconsistencies, the easiest way I find to make sure that you show up, which is first rule of success, is to just put it on the calendar, right? When it's in the calendar, it's like, for me, it's like it's locked in. It's very hard for it to be moved. So if I say every Wednesday I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the podcast, that means the scripts have to be ready. Everything else is ready. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do it. And I know that because it's already a commitment. It's on my calendar. It shows up every day. I see it every day for this week and the next week and the next week and the next week. It's even color coded, everything. But anyway, so think of discipline. It's like a muscle. You build it by keeping the promises that you do for yourself. You keep your promises to yourself. You reduce types of friction that could create chaos for you, right? Clear up plans, put the priorities in place, and then eliminate any excuses. Don't say, I don't have time. It's the worst thing you could say. And when you say, like anyone saying that, think about it. We all have the same 24 hours a day. So it's a matter of how you manage and control your time. So no excuses. I don't like hearing anybody tell me, any of my coaching clients, when they tell me, I didn't have time. I'm like, it's not possible. We all have time. We just have to create the time and prioritize. How important is this specific goal for you, right? So doesn't matter. It's a business thing or a personal thing. If that goal matters to you, you have to do it. No excuses. So start small. Set up 2 to 3 mornings where you're doing very focused work or CEO level work. You can't transition from none at all to suddenly, every day. So 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and then you can build on that. All right. We are at that time where I give you your profit question of the week. Are you ready? Let's go. If I, as your coach, observed your calendar for 30 days, would I see a CEO or an overworked employee? I'll repeat that. And I always do because I want it to sink in. If I observed your calendar as a coach, I observed your calendar for 30 days, would I see a CEO or an overworked employee? Right? Again, if I see an overworked employee, I'm going to help you get to the CEO level. That's my goal. All right. On every call with every coaching client, that's my goal. Okay. So here's your 3 actionable takeaways. Remember, track your time, 5 to 7 days, right? That's the audit part. Categorize everything, every task that you're doing into what level of work it is. What's the dollar value for that work? And then block 2 days at least for CEO mornings for the coming week. Okay. And then protect them. Protect that time. Don't give it away. All right. Okay, guys, next episode, we're staying in this area of time management, which is our pillar number 11, and then talking about more routines and rituals that can help you stay consistent, especially when life gets even more messy. All right, with that, have a great week. I will see you next Wednesday.